Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux with the Banner Press, welcoming you to this week's edition, and joined this week by a rested and ready, I assume, Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you here again this week.
Yeah, good to be here again, and well, I have to say, it was nice to have a little bit of a break for that week.
That's right. If you're a loyal and consistent viewer of the show, you know last week Casper took a little bit of vacation time. Well-deserved as well. And of course, you know, with the weather the way it is as of late, I mean, good timing on that. Although at the same time, maybe in the middle of February when you don't want to be around it, that might be a good time as well. So.
No, it was good. I was hoping to, during my vacation, get the mowing of the lawn done a little bit sooner in the week, but well, there was a lot of back and forth in terms of rain, and on days it didn't rain, it was fairly cloudy and didn't really dry up. So I think it was maybe like Thursday or Friday I finally got the mowing done, as opposed to like Monday.
Well, look at it this way. In the grand scheme of things, it was only a small portion of grass and field and whatnot that needed to be cleared. Unlike this next thing we're going to talk about, in which there's a whole heck of a lot of grass and brush and sage and whatnot that's going to have to be cleared out within the next 4 years, because this is a monumental story that has significant and historic impact on the town of Neepawa. Now, I know I've probably said those words on other stories before, you know, about a new ice cream coming into the store or the Titans winning a game in overtime, but this time, believe me when I say this is legitimately one of the biggest, most significant, most important things that has happened for the community of Neepawa within the last decade. If you haven't picked up a copy of the Banner and Press, you need to go out there, you need to pick up a copy of it. If you're not able to get a physical version of it, go on to mywestman.ca and educate yourself on this, because Neepawa has finalized a historic land deal. And when I say historic, it's just because of the sheer scope and size that we are talking about. 320 acres of land in the northwest section of Neepawa. It was privately owned by several individuals. Neepawa has decided, in terms of the long-term vision of the community and the long-term needs of the community, that it needed to purchase and acquire these lands in order to be able to have opportunities to create new real estate, as it were, for housing, for dwellings, for industrial. And this has cleared the way for that. This is going to be something that is going to have generational changes and generational impact on this community. Casper, you were on a vacation. Let me get your take on this, though. You come back into the office and you just, you know, it's, hey, anything going on? It's been a boring week? Nope. Well, let me get your take.
It was quite something to come back to. I mean, you know, trying to shake off the vacation vibes there and getting sat at the desk, and then seeing that article brought up to me, because you brought it up to me there, and reading the headline, I was like, huh, that's quite the huge development to come back to. Kind of just snaps to you just like that. It's a very big undertaking that is going to be happening here. And if you're having trouble picturing 320 acres, because I have trouble picturing what the heck an acre is. I have trouble picturing what 100 meters is. I'm just not that kind of person. I have to see a clear visual for it.
Really, your demographic is, okay, it's from here to there.
Yeah. If you're having trouble picturing it, there is a very good graphic on the front page there that perfectly outlines the sheer size of it. I mean, there's a bit of an outline there on the front showing that section, and then of course with how it's laid out, you can see it in comparison to the existing parts of town, which really does help highlight the size.
Quite honestly, when you look at it, to put it in perspective, as Casper said, it comes out to roughly maybe about 2/3 of the existing town of Neepawa. This is new land that has been purchased by the community. And the best example as well is, we've talked about this for years, it's been a very significant, very impactful part of Neepawa's growth, was the purchase of what was known as the former CN property. We all know it. If you're in Neepawa or surrounding area, you're very much familiar with that portion and parcel of land. It is about 42, 43 acres, if I remember off the top of my head. And comparatively, just numbers-wise, it's dwarfed by this new deal. But let me put this into further perspective for you. The CN property, 42 acres. It houses about 40 or 50 new houses. It houses several apartment and townhouse complexes. It is now home to the new, much larger fire hall. It is now the location of the new, much larger police station, and it is home to a massive, major new hotel development that is going up on the corner as we speak. And there's still a little bit of space so able to do some industrial stuff here. Now think about that. All that housing, all those apartments, the fire hall, the police station, the hotel, all crammed together within 42, 43 acres. Just imagine what they're going to be able to do with 320 acres. And just imagine what that means for the future of this community. In a way, it's mind-boggling to try and conceptualize just what that actually means in the long term.
No, you're certainly right. I mean, I guess the only thing we can really do is sort of wait and see how the plans get drawn up and things start progressing and see how everything's going to get laid out and go from there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of work that has to be done. Of course, we've had our water and sewer upgrades, so that's going to support this development, but they're still going to have to do additional work to have things run out there to, go to the houses and developments that go in there, whatever they're going to be building in there for the dwellings.
And again, when we talk about that, the primary point and the primary purpose of this is new housing, new dwellings for the community of Neepawa, because we have grown at such an exorbitant rate over the last 10 years. I believe within the last 5 years, our population increase, and it is in the story, so I might not get the number right off the top of my head, was roughly in and around 23% over that 5-year period. The previous 5 years, we had a population growth of 27%. So this is a community in the last decade that has grown on a very quick pace, which is wonderful. There's a lot of positives when you're able to grow at a pace like that, but there are also negatives. One of the negatives we have dealt with, and to a degree continue to deal with right now, is that there isn't enough housing for everyone. There isn't enough affordable housing. Now, when I say affordable housing, unfortunately, there's some people that get in their mindset, affordable housing means cheap housing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about affordable housing is in you're able to afford it. Because when there is a surplus of something, the cost goes down. When there isn't a surplus of something, the cost on sale and resale can go up. That's just smart commerce. So housing prices in Neepawa have gone up, proportionate to the value of that. So it's going to be great to be able to get some new housing in there. That's going to bring the property values into a more proportional state where people who maybe could afford to buy a house 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, could maybe do it now and do it again in the future. But that's just not just a Neepawa problem, though. That is a Canada problem, if we're being honest with ourselves, and to a larger degree, a North American problem. U.S., it doesn't seem to be impacting them to the same levels, the same numbers, but in Canada, the cost of housing has really gone up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pointing fingers at any one particular government on that. This is something that's been going on for decades. It's just everybody seems to have noticed it in the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years. I've said on this show a couple times, I think, if you're a consistent and loyal viewer and watcher of the show, I could afford to put a down payment down, and I could have afforded to have bought a house in the 90s. And I worked some pretty bad jobs in the 90s. I was working jobs in the 90s as opposed to a career. Let's just put it that way. But now that I've established myself, entrenched myself, been able to work in an industry that I've enjoyed for coming up on 20 years, 21 years come November, it's a career. And I do okay for myself. I'm not going to show you my T4s right now, but let's just say I do all right for myself. But I am less confident in buying a home today than I was in 1997. That is ridiculous. That is something askew with the system. That is something that is definitely, there's somewhere where we took a left or we took a right when we should have taken a left or a right. Whichever way, we zigged when we should have zagged, somewhere along the lines. And again, if I feel that, I can't even imagine. Let me throw this to you, Casper. Your generation didn't even get that sort of, oh, I work a part-time job, I can buy a house. You didn't even get that. You could work a 60-hour job and still not. Like, let me get your take on that.
Well, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the landscape, housing, I mean, cost of living in general has I think, drastically changed, especially in regards to housing. It just isn't the same as it used to be. I mean, you could, back then, typically, as you said, do a few different jobs and
Yep.
yeah, you could buy a house. But these days, it's a lot harder. You can be working multiple jobs and you still can't afford a house. Both you and your partner could both be doing multiple jobs and still not be able to afford a house.
Yep.
So it's really tough to get a place of your own that you can afford, whether it's buying or renting, because
Yep.
rent as well alone is quite astronomical too. I mean, there's some places you can find for rent that are extremely expensive, that are like small single bedroom, one bathroom, kitchen, and like that's it essentially.
Yeah.
And they can be like, gosh, I hate to even try and estimate the price, but it could be like $1,000 or even more expensive every month, just to have a one bedroom for yourself. So it's really tough to get into something like that.
Yeah.
Even if you try and do savings, like it's really hard.
It is. And we're getting off on a slight tangent that has nothing to do with the story we are in essence talking about. But these are the types of things that we like to get into here on the Story Behind the Stories. Sometimes we'll talk about the stories, and sometimes we'll talk about some of the things we talk about behind the scenes. And this is an example of one of them. The interesting thing is, Casper, is 11 years ago, I was working for a radio station in Portage-la Prairie. So obviously, living in Portage-la Prairie.
Yeah.
And I was renting there, and it was an apartment complex. And it was one bedroom, kitchen, dining room, living room, washer, dryer, everything you'd expect. And it was, back then, I'll share this, I signed the deal for 1 year there, and the deal was $578 a month.
Whew.
For that amount of space. Out of curiosity, I just decided, this was earlier in the year, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Or I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere, depending on your thoughts on that. But I decided out of curiosity, because we'd been talking somewhere else about costs and rentals and all that. I looked into the same property and the same costs and the same rentals for something like that. And that exact same location where I had lived when I was working in Portage-la Prairie was now going for $992 a month. And it was like, I'm sorry. I understand inflation. I understand that things go up year over year, but the inflationary percentages don't make any sense to me whatsoever. And it's just not Portage-la Prairie. It's just not Winnipeg. It's not Brandon. And it's not just Neepawa. But that's the realities that we're all dealing with right now. And part of the reasoning for it happening here in Neepawa is because there's only so many places that people can go. We got a large population and only a few. This hopefully will be able to curtail some of the stress, some of the drama, some of the inconvenience and fear that property owners, homeowners, renters have right now, and alleviate some of those fears. Because they're talking about up to 460 dwellings, and I very specifically in there use the term dwellings. It's not just quote-unquote houses. It could be a combination of houses, townhouses, apartment complexes. It's dwellings. It's 460 places where people can live are planned for this within possibly, best case scenario, by 2028. I would find that quite honestly remarkable if we're able to hit that timeline, but I very much, Casper, hope very much that I'm proven wrong on that they do hit those markers.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, yeah, like just looking at the numbers, it's like, it kind of makes you wonder, like, is that actually going to be something that gets achieved? Because it is a fairly tight timeline with, of course, the number of dwellings. Mind you, we don't know what they're going to be necessarily. It could be anything like houses, apartments, etc.
Yeah.
But working towards getting all those built, and then of course that's we're partway through 2024 already, so you have about 3.5 years to accomplish all of that. And I mean, you can in certain cases get building done really fast, just depending what's all involved, and of course have it done well. But yeah, that's quite the remarkable timeline. So I hope that they're able to stick to that and have that done so quickly. It's
going to be very interesting over the next 4 years to see how this develops. Because this is one of those stories we are going to be returning to again and again and again. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns as this develops. But the important thing to think about right now, and the important thing to remember at this moment in time, as we said, this is a very significant and monumental decision that's been put forward by the town of Neepawa to go forward and proceed on this. If you want to find out a little bit more, we've barely even scratched the surface on what this story is and what it means and how it came about. That's why you got to pick up a copy of this week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. As we always say, always remember, you can find it in locations all across Western Manitoba. If you're not able to get a physical version of it, every Friday morning at about 9 a.m. Central, it goes live on mywestman.ca. I got a couple other things to talk about this week. I'll be honest with you as well. With this being the short week, in terms of we all got Canada Day holiday off, and well, most of us did. Those who work retail still had to work it, and thank you, bless you for that. But we had the day off here at the Banner Press. And Casper, of course, was away on vacation, so I'm going to be honest with you. This, to a most part, this paper might be a one-trick pony, but that pony really knows a lot of tricks, some really good tricks. But there's still one or two things in here that I think will keep your interest. And that's this next one that's actually going to be followed up much more thoroughly in an upcoming edition. Just as we started this show, I was just finishing up writing the story about this. A new business in the town of Neepawa. You can find the picture. It's on page 2 of this week's edition. It's going to be opening soon. Quite honestly, by the time you watch this episode, it might actually be open. That's how quickly and how fluid this situation is right now. And we're talking about a business known as Chucky's Inventory. Most likely seen the signage as you've been driving in or out of Neepawa. It's located in the former Chalet Flooring building. It's going to be a liquidation store, and I had a chance to speak with the owner and operator of it just this morning, actually. And like I said, we're going to have that full story with you in terms of next week's edition of the Banner Press. Just going to give you a few quick details right now. It's over at 139 Main Street, former Chalet. Discounted items purchased either wholesale or from warehouse stores. So it's a very interesting concept. You've most likely seen that concept in larger cities like Winnipeg. They got a whole bunch of them in Winnipeg and in Brandon as well. But in terms of a quote-unquote rural center like Neepawa, it's not really something that usually occurs. But he sees an opportunity here. He sees that it could have some real value and worth to our community. So I was very glad to be able to get that. So you can find a picture and cut line on page 2, and you're going to have to pick up next week's edition of the paper to find out a little bit more on that. All right. Here's another story we had in last week's edition. We were able to follow up on this week's edition. Thank you very much to McCreary School and, of course, Neepawa Area Collegiate. They sent us all the information, all the award winners and the scholarship and bursary winners from this year's graduation. Thank you very much. Oh my God, when you look at a page like this, and Casper, you'd appreciate this because you have to deal with this from time to time, it takes so much time to actually type all this stuff up and put it in there, because it was sent to us in a format that we can't just copy and paste over, so we got to type it all up ourselves. Interesting story as well. Diane Warner, who we work with, said, oh, I can take a look at it and maybe type something up for you. And I got some free time. I figured, well, I don't want to wait on that. I'll just do it myself. And I'm the type of person who types. I do not, this is not me typing. This is me typing. So I typed it all in, got it all done. It was like, oh God, that was a lot of work. But I got it done. I got it formatted. I got it on the page. Looks pretty good. And then 2 minutes later, I got the email from Diane, who was working from home that day, and said, hey, I got it looked after. Here it is. It was like, oh God.
If I had just waited a couple more minutes, darn me.
I really should have just goofed off. Man, why did I have to be a good employee and decide to do the work? Why couldn't I just goof off? Man.
But you know what? It turned out really well. Like, it looks fantastic, that page you did up on 7 there for all the awards.
Oh, yeah. And again, something we usually do. We had a little extra space, so we decided to fancy it up maybe a little bit more than what we usually do each and every year. Congratulations to all the different recipients, and as well to McCreary School. We've got that on a couple pages of this week's edition of the paper as well. If there's any other schools or anything out there that have those types of details or information, always remember you can send them our way, even though most likely though they're on vacation too right now. They're into their summer mode right now, so they might not want to send it out. But if you do send it, we would appreciate it. So, all right, we only got a couple minutes left, so we're going to talk about one or two other things real quick. Speaking of which, time-consuming putting stuff together, Casper, you had, as soon as you walked through the door, essentially, this was thrown at you. Get back to work. We don't want to hear how your week was. Just work.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a warm-up exercise to get myself back in the groove here. I was helping in putting together the water safety feature that we have on this week. So placing the ads and setting up the photos, editing the photos to make sure they can go on the page and print well, and all the cut lines and all that on there. So we have that for our center spread this week, page 8 and 9. Just showing the lifeguards in the area, so Neepawa, Carberry, McCreary, and Gladstone. Just doing a little bit of a highlight for them, and well, their hard work, I guess, for the summer season, and giving them a bit of an introduction to you and encouraging you to play safe this summer.
That's right, and this is something that is a special feature that we do each and every year in the Neepawa Banner Press. As Casper said, this year Gladstone, McCreary, Carberry, and Neepawa were all featured. We always appreciate their support and the advertisers' support as well. So many sponsors that are part of this special feature every year. We appreciate you. We appreciate you seeing the value in being a partner and being a part of this every year, because that's a big part of being able to put this together. And like I said, it was essentially Casper came in on Tuesday. It was like, hey, good morning. How you doing? Good. So anyway, this is this section here. If you're able to work on this, that would be greatly appreciated, because I'm sure you know this as well. We all get that feeling after you've had a week or 2 weeks vacation. It takes a little bit of time. It's like a car in the winter. It takes a minute or two to start idling and get up to full speed again. And I'm sure you were feeling that a little bit too.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I mean, coming back from a week of holidays, you don't necessarily have story chases to work on. So aside from my meeting that afternoon with Norma Forsman there for a little bit, just to discuss some potential feature there, I really didn't have a whole lot going on. So it was either find something to help out with or archives, which would be fine, but I didn't have my laptop, so I don't really want to type it out on my phone, right?
Yeah.
So having that to work on was very nice to sort of warm me up and get back into the groove of building the paper.
That's right. All right, so to close out this week's edition, we just got one other thing we want to put a little bit of a focus on. It's not everything we've got in the paper. That's why you always got to remember to pick up a copy of it for yourself. But had a chance to go check out the Neepawa Cubs and the Santa Clara Baseball League. They had a home game within the last couple weeks against the Plumas Pirates. And oh boy, it didn't quite go as well as you'd hoped it would.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Reading that story on the page. Oh, 14-1, right?
It ended up, that's correct, being a 14-1 throttling. Let's not mince words. Plumas Pirates were able just to put it to the Neepawa Cubs there. So hopefully the Cubs, they're gearing up for the playoffs shortly. Hopefully they'll be able to figure it all out and move forward. But this year, for the most part, the Cubs are doing well. They got the third best record in the league. But for the most part this year, it's more of a Portage Padres, Plumas Pirates. Try saying that 10 times very quickly. Portage Padres, Plumas Pirates. Playoff showdown, most likely. But it's still some great entertainment. And don't forget, you can always check these games out right here on NAC TV. They're down there for each and every Cubs home game. They're able to record it. Check your local listings on that. And as we come up towards the end of the show as well, just a reminder to check your local listings about our lead story this week, talking about that land deal, that historic land deal for Neepawa and what it means. NAC TV has got a sit-down interview with Mayor Brian Headley, I believe. And they're going to be talking about how this came about, how long they've been looking into it, what sort of went into the process of it. So remember to check your local listings on that, because this is one of those stories, as we said, is very significant and historic for the community. And it's something that you should alert yourself to, whether it's picking up a copy of the paper, whether it's watching NAC TV and learning a little bit from the source, as it were. It's very important. So that's about it for this week. So really, we couldn't do this without your support in one way or another, whether it's picking up the paper, whether it's advertising with us, or whether it's sending us any story, news, or suggestions. And you can do something like that by getting in touch with us each and every week over at 476-3401. That's the number we can be reached at. Or either via email at news@neepawabanner.com. We try and hit every story suggestion we can find. There's only so many hours in the day, though, so if it slips through the crack, we apologize. But that's why if you always got a picture or some information, send it our way. We'll find a way to get it into the pages of the Banner Press. So that's about it for this week. Casper, hopefully it's been a good week getting back into the routine for you.
Absolutely, been going very well, and glad to be on here for another show, and looking forward to the next one.
That's right, and again, we got to thank you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you and your constant and consistent support. So once again, thanks for tuning in right here on NAC TV and the story behind the stories. We definitely hope that you're going to have yourself a great week and hopefully a fantastic and sunny summer.